Mic check 1, 2, and welcome back to the Devils Rink Report podcast. I am your host, James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now, and thank you for joining us today on this Friday, December 12th edition. Guys, the holiday season is right around the corner, and I know it's the season of giving, but I would assume that the Devils are giving you all a headache, but we will talk about why in a little bit. But today, joining us on the show, and he will be standing by soon, is Greg Wyshynski of ESPN, the original Puck Daddy, formerly of Yahoo Sports, and noted Devils fan. But again, he will put his unbiased hat on, and we will be discussing the latest and the greatest in the New Jersey Devils sphere. But before he hops on, we're just going to talk about a couple of news and notes from this morning at practice. So 3 skaters missing from the ice. It was Stefan Nason, Cody Glass, and Arseny Griciuk. Sheldon Keefe revealed after practice today that although Griciuk is going to miss some time, Stefan Nason and Cody Glass will be okay to go this weekend. And the Devils have 2 games this weekend against the Anaheim Ducks on Saturday, and then on Sunday against, you guessed it, the Vancouver Canucks. So we'll talk about that with Greg Wyshynski in a little bit here on Devils Rink Report podcast. But the thing I wanted to just note on with Arseny Griciuk was it sounded like this morning that when he spoke about what the Griciuk injury was, it was upper body, and he didn't say anything other than he's going to need some time. But that was after he said he's not going to be out for the weekend. So it was more like he's going to miss some time. He'll be out for the weekend, and then we'll reevaluate there. So it kind of was left open as if maybe the Devils might miss him for longer than the weekend. We'll see if that is in fact the case. In a couple of days, he was still getting reassessed, and there are more tests to come for him. Even Griciuk actually put out on his Telegram that he has more tests to take here soon. So, but it does sound like the Devils could be taking another hit to the lineup. It sounds like Griciuk, who's actually been one of the Devils' better forwards, could miss maybe more than just the weekend. He's definitely going to miss 2 games. And look, that hurts, right? Obviously, Jack Hughes is in the lineup. Timo Meier is on a leave of absence. We wish him the best. But Griciuk missing now as well. On top of the other injuries and such, Pesci, Kovacevic hasn't made his debut yet. Dadonov is played very minimal in New Jersey. It's a tough blow, but we will we'll see how it shakes out. We'll see how the lineup shakes out over the weekend. I mean, Xavier Perrant is now with the Devils, made his NHL debut yesterday. Angus Crookshank, he's with the Devils, actually looks pretty good too, and contributes on Friday in that brutal loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But standing by is Greg Wyshynski of ESPN, and he will join me now on the Devils Rink Report podcast. Greg, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for coming on, buddy. I know we were back and forth for a little bit there, but happy to finally get you. How are you?
Hey, listen, man. I got a young kid.
Yeah.
Born on Columbus Day, and then I've got one that's gonna be 2 in January. So I spend a lot of time being the old guy at the playground here in Brooklyn, and that sometimes interferes with my podcasting. But
yeah,
I appreciate your flexibility.
I totally get it. I was just playing with puppies right before I hopped on here with my with my 3-year-old. So I'm totally on in the same boat as you. But Greg, let's hop right into it. The one thing I want to start with was obviously last night's game wasn't the best. I know you're a Devils fan. I don't know if it's first or if it's now on the back burner, but I know we're gonna put the hat. There it is. But from your standpoint, whether you want to answer this as a fan or as the analyst that you are, let's start here. What is wrong with Jacob Markstrom, and is this extension already not looking good?
I mean, it's not great. Like his metrics tell you that he is playing below expected right now, and I think that they like the way he battles, and I think they like those games where the one big save at a key time can be the difference between winning and losing. But then there are so many other games where it just seems like his stability and his ability to play well enough to get them stakes to a lead and things like that. There's so much inconsistency in his game that you're thanking your lucky stars that Jake Allen's on the roster. because Markstrom frequently doesn't seem like the guy. But again, they love enough about him to have signed him to that extension. And when you look around the league and see what what desperation and goal looks like, i.e., the willingness to take on the next 2+ years of Tristan Jarry's contract, if you're the Edmonton Oilers, then you can see why, if the Devils, have a scintilla of confidence that Markstrom could be the guy, why you hang on to that.
Yeah, that was something this morning when you saw that goalie swap. One of the conversations I was having last night, somebody said to me, "Hey, how soon do the Devils pick up the phone and call Edmonton to see if they want a goaltender?" And I was like, "I don't know if we're there yet." But that does lead me to, though, the contract signing. I mean, it did feel like it came rather quick. It seemed like there was some sort of urgency to get this done. Why do you think that there was that urgency?
Probably just to take it off the table and to create certainty both for the player and the team. It's usually, what happens when you see a contract signed when it was. But again, it's one of those situations now in the league that if you've got a goaltending situation that you're comfortable with, and it's not like Markstrom is always bad. He's not had a very good season at all so far. But we've seen him in the past start off poorly, then course correct. You kind of hang on to that. So they've cast a lot with him. They've cast a lot with this tandem, having signed Allen for what they signed him for, which was a great contract. And so if that's where you're headed, you don't want to create uncertainty in your goaltending department, and you just move forward that way. Because honestly, there's not a ton of options out there if you're the Devils. If you wanted to cut bait on Markstrom, I mean, Freddie Anderson and players like that. I mean, it's if you haven't drafted and developed your goalie, or ended up, unlocking something in a guy that maybe previously didn't show it, like the Capitals did with Logan Thompson, for example, then you're kind of, in a situation where you've got to, roll with what you've got.
Yeah, I was saying to somebody last night, and I was wondering, like, is this a situation where, because I don't know if you watched the full game last night, but the third goal he let in, a backhand by Pontus Holmberg outside the dots. I mean, yeah, that's one of those that you say, does he just need like maybe a reset? Do you recall Nico Dawes and let him, look from above for a game or two and just reset his mind, get a couple practices in, which are hard to come by these days with the schedule being so condensed. But is that an option that you think that maybe they should look at and say that he's got to get his mind right so that, the Devils can move forward with a goaltender who, they could trust, because it's starting to get, in that uncomfortable, untrusting area.
Well, let's talk about the team in front of him for a second. Like you mentioned off the top, I mean, a team that's still missing Brett Pesce, who's one of the better defensemen when healthy that they have. A team that's missing Kovacevic, a team that's obviously missing what they're missing up front to kind of reset the lineup and knock things out of whack. But in particular, what they're missing on the blue line is pretty significant. So you have to give the caveat there to a guy like Markstrom that he doesn't have the best defense in front of him. But more to the point about like giving him a reset, this team probably has to win 1-0. Like, they can't score. and this weekend they really can't score, because two of the more effective offensive players that they've had in the lineup, with Jack being out, aren't going to be there either. So on the off chance that he puts together a hell of a game, you probably have to run with him for a bit until you can be better. You can feel better about the team that's in front of him.
It's a great point. And, after the game last night, I asked Sheldon Keefe, I said, you mentioned the significant drop. I was like, this is a tale of two teams, right? The beginning of the year, you guys were great. And now it's, you're sputtering. Which team are you? And do you think maybe you need some help here? Or is the answer in the room? And he didn't say necessarily, no, the answer is in the room. He kind of danced around it a little bit. So just from your standpoint, where are you at on that? Does this team need some help, or are they really only as good as Jack Hughes is when he's in the lineup?
They're as good as they are with Jack Hughes in the lineup, because they're built around Jack Hughes. I mean,
Right.
like when he's healthy and he's playing, this team is, if not the best team in the division, the second best team behind Carolina. And that's a fact. I mean, their goals per game have dropped by like a goal per game with Jack out of the lineup. And, the unfortunate reality of it is that because of the way that they've structured this forward group, once you pull Jack out of the lineup, the whole sweater starts to unravel. And you go from being a team that can be dominant and challenge for a championship to a team that can maybe scratch and claw its way into the playoffs, like we saw for the last month of the season last year. But when Jack's healthy, and when the defense is healthy, and when you have your goalies playing at least to expected levels, I mean, it's a team that could win the East. So like, are there tweaks to be made? Sure. You and I have talked about before how like this team has probably been searching for the next Tyler Toffoli since they let Tyler Toffoli go. I still think that they need more help on the wing. I still think that they could use, to use one of the names bandied about, a Ryan O'Reilly type as their 3C instead of a Cody Glass type. Like, it's not to say that they're a perfect incarnation of what the Devils should be, but obviously when Jack's healthy, they're demonstrably better and infinitely better than what they are right now.
Yeah, for sure. And that brings up a couple of points. Just real quick, you're listening to Greg Wyshynski of ESPN, and Greg, that brings me to a couple of questions. We we're hearing a lot about Quinn Hughes, and as you mentioned, there are other names that perhaps fill more urgent needs for the Devils. But you're right. We and I've been banging the Tyler Toffoli drum for a while. I've even said, hey, go get that guy back, maybe. But we hear Steven Stamkos, we hear Ryan O'Reilly, we hear other names potentially linked to the Devils. I mean, what's the route that they should be taking here? Do you go get Quinn Hughes and get that superstar defenseman? Because how often do they become potentially available? Or do you go fill those other needs? Is there a chance to do all of the above? I mean, what do they do here?
Well, I mean, the Quinn Hughes thing is wrought with a lot of stuff that goes beyond how good he is, which is that he's your star player's brother. And we've already seen what happens when you're the star player's brother. You get a contract that's paying you for services not yet rendered in the case of Luke Hughes. So, I mean, like, there's a certain fealty to the Hughes family that I think the franchise has already established. So if Quinn's available and he wants to come, the theory is that they'll make a deal and get him here before they have to wait to free agency. I do think that there's some complications to that insofar as like what Vancouver is looking for in return. I don't think the Devils are a perfect match for what they're looking for if they want, an NHL level center who's younger and probably better than Dawson Mercer is. The Devils can't really offer that up. They can offer up Simone Nemec and they can offer up draft picks, but they don't have a Connor McMichael type, or they don't have a Marco Casper type like Detroit has. That's going to maybe satisfy what the Canucks are looking for, which is why, all possibilities are open for Quinn to go someplace in the short term this year and next year, and then maybe come to New Jersey as a free agent in 2027 if the Devils don't have an offer that the Canucks want to accept. There probably is a little bit of like doing right by Quinn Hughes in this too. That obviously goes in the Devils' favor. But listen, he's the second best defenseman in the NHL. So if they can finagle a way to get him without seriously altering the spine of this team, and by that I mean like do something dumb like trading Nico Hischier for him, then they should probably go get him.
Yes, and I'm sure there will be no notices of tampering or anything like that that will that will be thrown around on X that fans will just have a grand old time with. But I saw you wrote a piece yesterday about the certain scenarios that could happen with Quinn. This morning, Elliot writes about how the center is the preferred, but like you said, like the pieces might not be all there for the Devils, and they might be somewhere else. Like a Detroit. But I mean, not to put you on the spot, but like, what are the best pieces that the Devils could offer? Like, do they have to maybe, just, I don't drain the swamp here?
Well, the real issue is that, beyond what they want to offer, they also have to figure out their own cap structure in order to, bring on Quinn and then sign Quinn. And so like, the idea that you're going to uncrowd the blue line by trading Dougie Hamilton to then bring on Quinn Hughes, I think that's probably the direction they have to go, whether that's to Vancouver or to someplace else upon acquisition of Quinn Hughes. But I mean, like, Nemec is going to be in the deal easily. I've heard Vancouver's high on him, which is obviously good for the Devils. You figure Dawson Mercer has to be in the deal if they're looking for help in the middle. And then some combination of prospect and draft pick as well. Again, like the issue that the Devils face is that there are going to be other teams that are a better fit, and then there's the back of your head theory that it could be the Hughes brothers all ending up in Detroit at some point. Like if the Red Wings trade for Quinn Hughes and then he signs there, and then Jack leaves in 2030 there, and then all they got to do is trade to get Luke from the Devils. I mean, that could be where they all end up because their family's been living there for the last 8 years, and they're all friends with Dylan Larkin. There are different scenarios that don't involve him ending up in New Jersey that are kind of scary if you're a Devils fan. But everybody I've talked to kind of points to the same thing, which is they do believe they're all going to play together, and most people believe that's going to be in New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, it does make a ton of sense, right? It makes more sense to move one piece than two pieces in a different direction. So, I'm with you on that boat. And one of the things I think of is, and I don't know, I heard a ton about this particular scenario, but obviously it has to be money in, money out. But what about the potential of maybe a multi-team deal here where everybody gets what they want, right? The Canucks get their center from maybe somewhere else, a different source. The Devils get Hughes, and then there's pieces going to Team X for something. And one of the things I think of, and I know the center is not going to come from this team, but I do know and have been told in the past that Nashville is very high on Dawson Mercer, and a number of other teams are high on Dawson Mercer. I mean, is that out of the realm of possibility here?
It's not. I mean, I think all scenarios are going to be on the table, including one where a team that believes they can contend in the short term trades for Quinn Hughes, and then that team ends up trading him to the Devils next year. I mean, like you look at Washington, like if Washington's whole thing is to maximize their window to win with Alex Ovechkin, we don't know if Alex Ovechkin's playing beyond this season. So if they go and trade for Quinn Hughes and have him for one big run with Ovi, they may want to flip him next year for Nemec. There's a lot. Everything's on the table right now, which is what makes the whole scenario really exciting.
Yeah, it's so true. And one of the things I saw that you pointed out, which I don't have any reason to believe that this would happen, but you tell me your thoughts on it. You said the Canucks are high on Nico Hischier. That would be the ask, but there's no way the Devils turn around and do that, right?
No, I mean, I think trading Nico Hischier in this deal would leave you looking for Nico Hischier for the rest of Quinn Hughes' contract. I mean, like Nico is the quintessential second line center on a team like the Devils. One, because their first line center can only be counted on to play like 60 games in a season, while Nico's pretty stable. And then two, just he does everything you need. Like he plays a 200-foot game, as a guy who's in the Selke conversation, is a guy that can score a bunch of points and a bunch of goals playing that role. If the point of getting Quinn Hughes is to win a Stanley Cup, then it needs to be in service of keep making sure that Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt are on the roster that he joins.
Yeah, there was a ton of talk about, whether Jesper Bratt would be involved in a deal like that or not. And I'm like, guys, listen, he's got a full no move clause. He's not waving to go to Vancouver for anything here. But everybody, you're listening to Greg Wyshynski again of ESPN. If you have any questions you want to ask myself or Greg, just be sure to drop those in the chat, and we'll do our best to get them up on the board for you. Greg, I have one or two more here for you. But obviously Devils fans are very passionate. You're one of those fans. But over the last few days, I think the frustrations, the tempers have boiled over. You're hearing a few chants at the Prudential Center. Where are you at on the hot seat for Fitzgerald? Is it at a simmer? Is it even hot at all? Is it cold even? Where are you on that level? 1 through 10 if you have to.
I mean, it's probably like a 6 or a 7 at this point. I mean, if the team doesn't make the playoffs this season, there's only so much plausible deniability you can have insofar as the injuries that they've suffered. Look, I think some of the things that Fitz took a lot of grief for have paid off better than maybe people give him credit for. But I also think that when this team is at full strength, there's still some holes in the lineup that are being filled in a let's hope this works out kind of way. Like I like Cody Glass as a player, but I don't think that he's a legit 3C on a championship contender. But again, like some of the things they've done are pretty good. I mean, the Connor Brown movie, I love. I think that's exactly the kind of like guy that's played in important games in the last 2 years that they should be looking for. Do they need more scoring up front even when Jack's healthy? I think so. But the real issue for this team is that it just can't stay healthy. We don't know what it looks like half the time because we've not gotten a chance to see what it looks like at full strength.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I did think that the body of work over the summer did leave some questions coming into this year. We said earlier, the top six forward, the third line center. And the third line center thing was a little odd too. They weren't going to sign Cody Glass, and they wound up signing him later, after I guess hearing how much interest there was in him. One of the things that I've seen over the past few games develop was just how I think the fourth line has struggled. Obviously, they have those guys up from Utica, but as the Colorado Avalanche did with their net last year, they revamped that goaltending. I think the Devils need to revamp their bottom six a little bit here, despite doing it in the summer. And I think it starts with the 3C. If you had to put one person in that spot, the best fit of the available names, is it Ryan O'Reilly?
No, it's Nazem Kadri. I think Kadri is like the guy that you want if you're a contending team, and I think Kadri also adds a bit more snarl and I mean, I'm not trying to diss Ryan O'Reilly's compete level, but Kadri is a different kind of competitor. I think that's the type of player that I'd love to see on the Devs, and I also think that he's someone who could easily play up the lineup if needs be, if you're missing your top line center as well. So the problem with Kadri is that it's going to take a trade proposal that really knocks Calgary on their asses in order to get him, because they don't want to give him up. They think he's pretty important for that team, not only statistically but as sort of like a pace setter for their younger players. And the other problem is that Calgary, except for very recently, has played a little bit better. And so if they're like relevant, they might not be looking to trade Kadri regardless. So that's the kind of player that I'd look for. But when you're dealing with trying to figure out what assets you need to get Quinn Hughes out of Vancouver, and then what do you still have to trade for other people, it becomes a little bit more complicated.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was a point that I made a few weeks ago where I feel like Kadri is one of those guys who this team needs, right? This team needs a little bit of elbow grease, and he does that. He drags guys across the line into the fight, and you saw what a guy like that in Sam Bennett did for the Florida Panthers, and you saw what Kadri did for the Colorado Avalanche
Yeah.
when they won their Stanley Cup. So 100%, I totally agree with you there. I think that's bang on, and we got one or two questions here from chat for you, and then we're gonna let you go, send you on your way. We know you got some dad business to get to, but Chizich88 says, Greg, I vividly remember you asking whether Shiro should keep his job on Puck Soup back in 19, and he was gone a week later. Are we at that point yet with Tom Fitzgerald?
I have to imagine if there's any kind of change, it'll probably happen in the off season. I don't think it's going to be something that happens in season. And again, whether or not they make the playoffs is going to be really contingent on him potentially, keeping his gig. I also wonder, just in general though, like when a general manager loses his job, it's not because he's being fired by anyone but the people above him. And so, like I don't know this for sure because I haven't had these discussions with them recently. But like, where's ownership's head right now on this team? Every time I see Josh Harris, he's hanging out at a football stadium in Washington. Like, how much time and attention and pressure is there right now to make a change at the top? I don't know. That's part of the equation too.
Yeah, totally. And that's another discussion. How many hands in the baskets can ownership have right now? And yeah, if anything does happen, it does seem like it would be the offseason. I agree with you there. There was some time to right this ship here. I got another one here for you from Captain THC. He says, I know it's been something that you've said in the past. Did you ever get to the bottom of who named Anson Carter Ace? And did that clown give himself the nickname?
I feel like that was something that came out recently, and I feel like, man, I'll tweet it because I remember there was some sort of mystery solve that happened with me and Merrick doing MVSW on his show The Sheet on Daily Faceoff, where we like kind of sussed it out, but it remains utterly incomprehensibly funny when he would just like, hey, Ace here, and then like some player needs to know who the hell that is. But I don't remember I don't remember how we resolved that, but it remains really funny whenever he does it.
Last one here for you. We have a question about whether or not the Devils should, like I said earlier, drain the swamp. What prospects should the Devils send to Vancouver for Quinn? Is it Silyev? Is it Casey? Is it all the above? Who's going? Is a guy like Mikhail Yegorov untouchable? Should they do that?
I don't know if anyone's untouchable, but I do think that based on what I understand, Vancouver is looking primarily for players with NHL level experience. They're not looking to completely tear it down. They want to retool. I think you kind of saw the same thing with the JT Miller trade last year, where they go and they get Philip Hedl to find someone who's on the younger side, but also has NHL experience. So I do think it's going to end up being Nemec being the fulcrum for whatever trade they gin up, and then whatever happens after that, I'm unsure. I'm sure probably Dawson Mercer, but I don't think it's going to be draining the prospect pool to get Quinn, because I don't think that's where the Vancouver Canucks heads are at.
Greg, you're one of the best. We appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to do this again sometime, hopefully in a better vein. Because right now it's not the I don't know, that the vibes are low. But am I going to see you Sunday when
I'm going to be there
Quinn...
Sunday for the Vancouver game? Yeah, I just I don't know. I do. I want to make sure I get there early enough to see if fans bring a bunch of signs on the glass.
Yeah.
Hey Quinn, rock paper scissors for you accepting a trade to the Devils. Like, I don't know, but it should be an interesting weekend. I mean, they're in such a spiral right now, particularly offensively, that they really need to grab some points this weekend. But the Ducks aren't easy. I've been really impressed with them continuing to win, even with the injury to Dostal, their goalie, and then obviously the Vancouver situation. That's a team they should beat, but who knows if they could beat anybody at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure, as soon as Quinn touches the puck, touches the ice, fans are going to be screaming for him, chanting his name, and kind of like when they did with Timo, this is going to be a lot louder with the with the man in the building. So, Greg, thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll send you on your way. Thanks for coming on the show, and
anytime.
We'll talk soon.
Much appreciated. Thanks,
Greg Wyshynski. There he goes, and Sunday, the Devils play the Vancouver Canucks. That is must-watch television, must sit in the seats, which not a lot of you, by the way, have been sitting in the seats at the Prudential Center. It's been, empty the past couple days. And listen, I get it. It's tough times right now. You're not seeing the lineup you want to see. It's been injuries, and it's been, unfortunate off ice events that are keeping, players from staying in the lineup. And it's certainly been trouble. So, let's just hop into some talking points, and then we're going to get to your guys' questions, because there's a lot of them here. There's a lot of you here, and a lot of you want your voice heard, and that's what we're here to do. So, the spirals continue, like Greg just said. 6 losses in the last 7 games, 5 of them on home ice, and you saw some encouraging signs from the Devils in the Boston game, albeit it was a tough score, but it's encouraging signs where they were getting back to their structure, not staying completely on the perimeter like they had been. I asked Jesper Bratt last night, where's the confidence in the room? And he said, good, everything's good. Yeah, I question if that's actually the case, because the structure that we're seeing, that the team that is, out there on the ice night after night, you're not seeing guys drive the middle. You're not seeing guys get in front of the goaltender. You're not seeing guys battle for puck possession. You're seeing a very passive team. You're seeing a team that's keeping things to the perimeter. You're seeing a team that a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, that's men coming in and handling them like they're boys, and that's exactly what you saw last night. And look, the Lightning weren't thrilled with their performance either. They allowed 4 goals, and they said that there were some defensive deficiencies on their end too. But I mean, when you put up an 8 spot, look, Jonas Johansson didn't look like a stalwart to start that game. In fact, he looked very shaky. They probably should have put all pucks on net, as much pucks on net as they could have, got in front of him in the crease, and tried to blind him, redirect a puck, do whatever you could to just disrupt him even a little bit. And you didn't really see too much of that. You had a couple of breakaway goals, Jesper Bratt, Paul Cotter. Those are gimmies. They should be gimmies, right? They've been hard to come by, but the Devils did score 4, but gave up 8, right? It's one of those situations where you sit there and you say, okay, they can score 4, but why can't they keep the puck out of their own net? The goaltending is supposed to match that. The defense is supposed to be better than it is right now. And there's just a lot of question marks about where to go from here. So they're snowballing in the Metropolitan Division. Lost, like I said, 6 of the last 8 since Thanksgiving. They've been outscored 31-20. The power play has scored 4 in the last 21 opportunities. That's 19%. The penalty kill has killed off 9 of the last 17 at 53. So that's not too bad. But they allowed 3 power play goals to the Ottawa Senators. So they have to be much stronger than they have been on special teams, because it has been, a bit of a struggle there, and that's something that you want the Devils to be much better at. They have look, Jack Hughes went down with injury, sure, but this team still has star players. Nico Hischier, they have Jesper Bratt, they have Luke Hughes. These guys are supposed to be drivers. Dougie Hamilton will throw in that mix. He's supposed to be a driver. He's playing awful hockey right now, so it's been for sure hard for them to stomach. Um, and look, the injuries are taking a toll. You got the guys like Luke Hughes and Simone Nemitz out there playing big minutes, and they don't have it every night. And sometimes there are nights where they're playing on their offside, and suddenly now they're making those little mistakes that just frustrate you to no end. And I've seen the comments. Luke Hughes has been awful since signing his extension. He missed all of training camp. This is what happens. And whereas that might be true, those nights where he's playing on the right side and as a left defenseman, I mean, it's just a completely different game when you're playing on your offside. So it's not an excuse. He does need to be better. He had a really nice goal last night where he deked the defender, I forget who it was, out of position and gained the ice in front of him, scored. You want to see more of that happen from him for sure, but a lot of that play at the blue line with him lately has just been, and when I say lately, it's been actually most of this season. It's been dreadful. I mean, he's trying to skate his way through defenders. He's trying to skate around guys or through guys, and mishandling the pucks. He's been trying to get pucks through lanes that just are not getting through. I mean, he can't get a shot through. He's the shin guard king right now. And that's been a struggle for him. That's why you don't see him on power play one all the time. And in fact, that's why you see Simone Nemitz up there, because he actually has been getting the pucks through on power play one. But Luke's ice time has jumped to a full 2 minutes from last season, from 21:09 to 23:08. So, I mean, that's significant. Since Thanksgiving, he's led defenseman with, the most time on ice on the PK. That's significant, and you have to believe similarly that Dawson Mercer last season, that he's feeling, missing the training camp, right? The parallels are the same. And when I spoke to Lindy Ruff, excuse me, Sheldon Keefe, when I spoke to Sheldon Keefe about, the significance of missing time in training camp, he was not hesitant to be like, yeah, that hurts, and he needs to be here. So last year with Dawson Mercer, he missed just 1 day. And at the end of the season, Sheldon Keefe was talking about he missed training camp, like even a day, and that put him a day behind everybody else. So, it has hurt, and it hopefully gets better when Pesci's back in the lineup. You miss him there. You certainly miss Jonathan Kovacevic there. And once those guys are back, you assume that all these guys are going to be slotted back where they belong, and everything's going to look great. But you have to take into account the time that these guys have missed. I mean, what is Jonathan Kovacevic going to look like when he gets back? Is he going to be able to get back in the lineup? I mean, who knows what the lineup looks like when he does return in the new year? Is there a Quinn Hughes trade to be made? Is Simone Nemitz not going to be here? And are there going to be other pieces moved out? So now there's going to be room, perhaps. Maybe that's the way some of these things work themselves out, and those are the answers to some of the questions that we've been asking. We'll see. But Kovacevic hasn't played in 6 months. He's skating and everything, but he hasn't seen game action in a long time. So you have to give him a bit of time to get acclimated with the game again. You have to give him some time to catch up to speed. It's going to be tough. Brett Pesci, too, obviously he's missed, significantly less time, but he's still missing significant time, no less. And you want to see him come back in the lineup and be a difference maker right away, but there's no guarantee of that. He's going to have to get his feet under him. You could say the same thing for Jack when he gets back. So when those guys do come back, perhaps that makes Luke a little bit better because he's back in his rightful spot and all the cogs are back in the ignition. But we'll see what happens, because those guys got to catch up to speed. And that brings me to Simone Nemitz, who, small sample size, but his time on ice has increased by 5 minutes from last year. And again, small sample size due to how much he played last year versus how much he's playing this year. But he went from 14 minutes, almost 15 minutes of time on ice, to now 20 minutes of time on ice. It's really it's a significant jump. He's quarterbacked the power play, so that's jumped as well. He's getting 2 minutes and 52 seconds on the penalty kill on average per game. He's getting plenty of power play time. So I mean, there's been some impressive offensive production, but you do want to see Luke, hopefully take or usurp that role at some point. And I say this all tongue in cheek, because at one point, you'll see perhaps Nemitz go in a Quinn Hughes deal, and then suddenly Quinn Hughes is the power play one guy. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll listen. The Quinn Hughes stuff is got me in just this vortex right now of like it's impossible not to pay attention to it, right? And you hear Adam Foote talk about it over in Vancouver. It's affecting their room. It's affecting the lineup. It's affecting not just Quinn. It's affecting the everybody else in that locker room. Like what's going to happen with Quinn Hughes? And more and more, it just seems like he's going to be moved. And if you think that's not having the same effect on in New Jersey, I mean, look, Sheldon Keefe handled it differently, and he said we're not thinking about that kind of thing. But if you're Simone Nemitz, you're not sitting there wondering what's my future going to look like. If you're Dawson Mercer, are you not sitting there saying, I wonder if I'm going to be traded? Certainly those things are going through their minds. And yes, it's a little bit easier for younger guys who can just, be traded and move on and not have to worry about, where am I going to reroute my family and all that stuff like that. But it's still a toll no less. I mean, you're talking about moving from one side of North America to the other. And it's going to make a difference in their lives, a significant difference in their lives. So we'll see how it goes. But certainly it's taking up a lot of the oxygen, not just in the NHL sphere, or I shouldn't say not just in the New Jersey Devils sphere, but in the NHL sphere as a whole. Every show's talking about it. We're talking about it. We're all writing about it, and it's certainly a very prevalent presence right now. Um, Inconsistent goaltending over this stretch, by the way. It's not just Luke Hughes and Simone Nemitz having to play increased minutes and the defense not playing well. It's not just the inability to score goals right now. Yes, those are significant factors, but the goaltending has been a problem. Jacob Markstrom has been a problem. His confidence is certainly low right now. It's one of those things where we get into the locker room, we talk to him, we say, what are you feeling? What are you seeing out there? And his answers are short. They're sharp, not good. He's even barked back a little bit. What are you seeing from me? Because I know it's not good. And look, I get it. Frustration, right? It's certainly not what he anticipated. He's a competitor. Like everything they say about Jacob Markstrom is true. He is the hardest on himself, and he's a fierce competitor. He wants to be the best. Is he the best right now? Obviously, he's struggling. He's not there right now, but he wants to be, and he's hard on himself. And is that good enough? Of course not. Of course, it's not good enough. But he's been a problem, and the confidence is certainly a factor. So he knows it, and he's hearing it. And I do wonder, like I alluded to Greg, if there is something there where, hey, bring Nico Dawes up for a little while. I don't know if there's a conditioning stint to be had with Jacob Markstrom. Let him look up from Eagle in the Sky in the press box. Let him watch a few games and go down to the American Hockey League and get his feet out from under him if there's perhaps maybe some sort of injury there or something like that. He says he's healthy, but nobody wants to make any excuses in this league. So we'll see there if that's something that is an option. I do plan on asking that if things continue to spiral. But we'll assess that when that time comes. But I think it's an option. I think Nico Dawes, um, not that he's the future or anything like that, because I just don't I don't think that the Devils feel that way. They have Yegorov in the pipeline, and I was asking around about Jacob Malik the other day. A lot of high praise for Jacob Malik as well. So the Devils goaltending pipeline looks strong, but the goaltending doesn't look as strong right now. But um, on Dawes, I don't know that the Devils see him as part of the future. I know they are happy that they have him around. He could be an option right now for them to play in the NHL lineup because of how the goaltending has really lacked lately. And there's just something about him when he comes to the NHL and he plays in the Devils lineup where he puts together really good starts. I mean, look what he did against the Wild earlier in the season. It was his only start. But he's had a couple of those starts where you sit there and you say to yourself, this guy can hack it at least as a 1B or a backup. Give him a shot, but we will see how it goes there. Um, Although Gritsuk is hurt, so let's take a look at the positives from this stretch, right? Gritsuk is hurt, that's a negative. But um, he continued to display on that line excellent consistency. I mean, this is a player who, again, we talk about it, just his all-around game is immaculate. All three zones, he's exactly where he's supposed to be, doing his job. He's a very, very smart player. Gritsuk has been excellent for this team since Thanksgiving. 3 goals, 6 points, 2 primary assists. You love to see that from the rookie. He's top 5 in rookie scoring, albeit it's not the highest scoring race, but he is in that mix right now, and that includes guys like Schaefer, that includes guys like Beckett Seneca, who has been just a monster for Anaheim. You're going to see him again on Saturday. But Gritsuk is up there. Obviously, he's going to be out for the next couple days. But that line of Glass, Brown, and Gritsuk, they have something there. So when this team is fully healthy and they're going well, it's going to be because not just the top six, but that third line is taking advantage of lesser third lines around the league, and they really need to keep that line together and intact and figure out a way to not have to break up Brown and move him up the lineup, or Gritsuk move up the lineup. And perhaps, let's say they do go get a 3C. I would love Nazem Kadri for this team. I don't know that that's realistic, but I really do think that would be the best fit. But even if it is a Ryan O'Reilly, excuse me, and you're moving Cody Glass down in the lineup to fourth line center, that's gonna strengthen your depth that much more. So we will see if that is something that is realistic at all. Who knows? But look, I do know for a fact that Tom Fitzgerald, and I'm not breaking any news here, this has been well reported, but Tom Fitzgerald is actively on the phone lines. He's trying to do something here to move out some money or make a hockey trade. He wants this team to get better. Look, it's not a surprise to hear him trying to get ahead of things, right? I do know that he has been a bit inactive for your guys' liking, but history does show that he does get a bit ahead of the trade deadline or a bit ahead of the summer, like he did with Jake Allen and Capo Kakinen, that one trade deadline, or like he did with Timo Meyer, a couple weeks in advance of the trade deadline. These things have happened before. Has he necessarily been as proactive as he should be? No, I don't think so. I think there are certainly areas that he does need to improve, but these things are happening behind the scenes. So, we'll see how quickly these things could come together. I mean, there was a trade today. Does that break the dam? I mean, nobody else anyway, was really in the goalie market. And if the Devils were going to end up trading Jacob Markstrom anywhere, it was going to be Edmonton if he wasn't on the no trade list, but I'm sure he was. And now everybody has a goaltender. I mean, at least it seems, right? Unless there's something happens where, I don't know, maybe Montreal is looking for one because of how their netminding situation is going. But listen, there's been some questions about, are they going to buy him out? Are they going to trade him? I don't think they're going to trade him. First of all, he has a full no move right now, and then he does get a 20-team no move in the first season of his new contract, which is on July 1st. And the 10 other teams, or the 12 other teams who are not on that list, you can guarantee those are teams that have great goaltender. Like Calgary is going to be on that list because he doesn't want to go back there, or isn't going to be on that list because he doesn't want to go back there, but they have Dustin Wolf. The New York Rangers are going to not be on that list because he knows I'm not going to go to the New York Rangers. They have Igor Shesterkin, right? Like the Islanders aren't going to be on that list because they know that, they have Ilya Sorokin. Like those teams aren't going to be on his no trade list, just to ensure that he basically has a full no move clause in year one. And then it downgrades in year two. I don't know exactly the parameters. I think it might be a 10 team, but it's going to be tough with Markstrom if he can't improve. It's going to be tough. I mean, it's basically a trade proof contract for the next, for between now and next season. In year three of this, in the last season of that new contract, it might be movable. We'll see what happens. And I think that was the plan if it came to it, because that's why you saw Jake Allen get that 5-year extension at a real low cap hit. We'll see how things sort themselves out. But if nothing else, you're hoping right now that Jacob Markstrom can just turn it around and get his mind back in the right spot here. Um, all right, let's move on. So one of the things I did like to see yesterday in the past couple of games is Paul Cotter starting to get going. That's good news for me. He scored on the breakaway yesterday, like I said. He scored a couple games ago as well, and he's throwing the body a little bit more. So he's getting up actually in the top six just because of how injury ridden this team is right now. But when everybody's back and healthy, that's the Paul Cotter you want to see. He's a guy who maybe the IQ just doesn't match the hands and the feet yet, but he does show these glimpses of hope, and these glimpses of brilliance that you hope that he can translate more often. So him getting going is a good thing. Maybe it's because he is getting the increased ice time. We will see. All right. Got a couple other notes here. I'm just sifting through. Tom Fitzgerald got the team into the situation. All right, so there are certain, we talked about Tom Fitzgerald's tenure. Let's just address this quickly. Is he on the hot seat? I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're there yet. I know there's frustration. I know we want the activity. Is he on the hot seat? I don't think we're there yet. In his corner, I'm not saying this is how I feel, but in his corner, he does have the excuse of injuries. I counter that with, we have seen this happen for the past 2 seasons now, and you had plenty of evidence to prepare for this situation where Jack Hughes goes down and you need some more depth. I mean, the center depth coming into this season was not good. Cody Glass as a 2C was not going to work. That they had to move Dawson Mercer off the wing, right? You need to address that, and you need to address that as soon as you can. Um, they're going to give him a leash to do that. They're going to probably let him play out this season to try and get the train back on the rails here. But I assure you that I don't think his seat is sizzling yet. Maybe it's lukewarm. Maybe it's just at a slight simmer right now. But again, there are certainly questions with what he's done. Like, I never understood the Juho Lammikko signing. That was just one that I didn't understand. There was never a Tyler Toffoli replacement. I will continue to bang that drum. That's a guy who, look, if he was playing with the Devils right now, would they be that much better? Maybe not. But when Jack is in the lineup, he was the finisher that they never had next to Jack that they finally got when they traded for him, and then they just let him go. And it didn't even materialize into anything. It was a couple of draft picks that I don't know that they're going to be anything in the near future for the Devils, let alone anything at all. So that was, certainly something that hurts. The Andre Palat contract, will continue to talk about this year after year. He's just not a $6 million player, something that certainly hurts. So, but there have been good things too. Timo Meyer, I know that there have been a lot of questions about, is he the guy that we should have paid all that money for? Should he be the highest paid forward on the team? Look, there are certain costs to acquisition when you make big trades like that, but I'm a huge fan of Timo Meyer. I think he does so much for this team when he's in the lineup, and it's certainly hurting them right now that he's not there. Again, we wish him the best and take as much time as he needs, of course. But the fact of the matter is that he is that power forward. He is that presence. He is that driver when they need him to be. And he can take over a shift and win the Devils a game. Has he necessarily done that? Not maybe win a game, but look, when he was playing, the past week or so, he was actually getting the Devils started, getting them on the board first, and getting them the momentum. So he is certainly missing from this lineup right now. And look, when the Devils traded for Jacob Markstrom, everyone was happy about that. I know there were some questions, always a little bit older, but I do remember, certainly a lot of the fans were excited to have Jacob Markstrom. We finally addressed the goaltending. Jake Allen and Jacob Markstrom. This is a great tandem moving forward. And I was one of them. I was in agreement that, that was a great tandem moving forward. Certainly it's not looking great right now, and we'll see if it can, sort itself out. But that was something that I think a lot of fans were happy with, trading Kevin Ball away. We didn't need the first round pick, is what I saw everybody saying, and I totally understood that. So there have been good, and look, Connor Brown, that signing, I think that that's been a great signing, Connor Brown. But we will see how he could pivot here. We'll see if there are other good moves ahead for Tom Fitzgerald, or if there are going to be panic moves, and if there are going to be moves that aren't as calculated as they should be. We will see. A shakeup, no less, might be needed. I saw some people say that we should fire Sheldon Keefe. This is not on Sheldon Keefe. I do understand, look at the Lightning. They have overcome their injuries, and that is true. But they are a team who, again, just recently won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and I totally understand the comparisons. But I don't think that this is on Sheldon Keefe. I think he's working with what he's got. I mean, we're talking about potentially the quadruple A Utica Comets here in the NHL for the New Jersey Devils. Some questions on if Rogalski should be, changed. One of the things I think of is, I look at Long Island, I look at Ilya Sorokin, and they made a goaltending coach change there, right? Piero Greco is out. I believe Mitch Korn was already gone. But they brought in somebody that Ilya Sorokin had previous history with. They brought in somebody who has really transformed Sorokin's game, and now he's playing Vezina caliber like goaltending. And I do wonder if there is something to that. I know that, Rogalski is a Brodeur guy, he has a great relationship with the organization, but I do wonder if perhaps there is something that could be done with perhaps who is mentoring these goaltenders. Because again, I know there's that saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but these guys are, professionals. They have to be able to adapt and change with their environment. So that's something I wonder is if there could be a new approach, a fresh set of eyes on the goaltending, just to sharpen them and make them, just a little bit more stable in the crease. Um, all right, so Sean, let's get to questions from the chat. I see. Well, all right, look, real quick, in terms of what the Devils are going to do moving forward, right? This trade chatter is picking up. Um, One thing that's going to be tough for the Devils is all of these trade clauses that the Devils have handed out, specifically Fitzgerald has handed out. Let's just go through the list. Stefan Nason has a 10-team no trade clause. Andre Palat has a 10-team no trade list, which means that he actually has 22 teams that he won't go to. That's tough. Same for Dougie Hamilton. Um, Jonas Siegenthaler, 10-team no trade clause. Brendan Dillon, full no trade clause, which granted, I don't think he needs to go anywhere. He's been great. A couple hiccups here and there. I get it. No, nobody's perfect, but he's been, for the most part, this season, very strong. Kovacevic has a full no trade clause, and that just started this year, and it's going to be for the next 4 years after this. And Brett Pesce, no trade clause. He's not going anywhere anyway. But it's really those top four guys that you're looking at. Siegenthaler, who, look, are they going to make a move for him? He actually probably would be the easiest to trade because of his cap hit. But, again, that is something that, full trade or a 10-team no trade clause. It's a bit of a hurdle. The Dougie Hamilton and Plot contracts, those are hard. Those are hard to move because who's taking on those players right now? I don't think anybody, unless you attach some incentive to them. And then Stefan Nason, he's another guy who you look at and you say, what happened? Because last year you were a 20 goal scorer, albeit you probably were shooting a bit above your shooting percentage. But you were much more effective last season. Is it that injury that you had in the summer that you didn't, get to right away? You tried to rehab yourself and it didn't work out? Perhaps. And I think, the organization, from what I've gathered, was not thrilled with that route that, Stefan Nason wanted to take. But look, it also is his choice, right? And we've seen this happen with Jack Eichel. We've seen this happen with other guys in the league where they want to handle their injuries themselves. And, Nason took a shot and it didn't necessarily work out. So is that impacting him now? He likes to say no. He tends to say no. He's fully healthy. He's feeling good. So, there are some concerns here. Obviously, not some. There are a lot of concerns here with the Devils. A lot of no trades. They have to make moves. How are they going to do it? And it does certainly feel. Look, again, I'll reiterate. I'm not on the Fire Fitzgerald train yet. I do think his seat is warming up, but I don't think we're there yet. I think he has. Um, I think he has to show that he can fix this, and if he can't, this summer is when all that could be a more serious conversation about, okay, who's going to be the guy to steer the ship moving forward, and should it be Tom Fitzgerald? We will see. But all right, Sean, chat is live. Chat is active today. Let's get to their questions. Let's get to their comments. Let's talk about it with everybody who wants to address their frustrations, I'm sure, but not from Captain THC, because he said this pod and Nova's pod are by far the best Devils podcast going. Captain THC, I really appreciate that. It really means a lot. Sean and I put a lot into this. Our schedules don't always necessarily have the most time to get all this stuff done, but hey, we wanted to do this, with something that our minds came together, this season. We said, there's an opportunity here, let's take this and run with it, because it's, something that is another outlet for us to provide content. And we all heard the voices of, hey, we want, some Devils podcasts from the guys in the room, from the guys who are boots on the ground. So, thank you, Captain THC. I really appreciate you saying that. If you guys like this kind of content, please do us a favor. Smash that subscribe button, like the videos, tweet them out, tell your friends, and other Devils fans that you might know, and have them subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 here on YouTube. I think we're at like 580, so we have a ways to go. But we're trying to get to 1,000. So please be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you have, thank you so much, and we appreciate you being here. What else we got here, Sean? Mr. White says Kadri would be a dream acquisition following with Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Deneau. Philip Deneau was one that I was curious about because I did know, I did hear that the Los Angeles Kings were curious about what the market for him would be like, and his name was out there a bit. But I do think in that order, that is the dream acquisition line for third line center. Kadri, because he's a guy like Greg said, and I said a couple weeks ago, who could play up in your lineup in the case that Jack Hughes gets hurt again. He could be a 2 seed, no problem. Um, Ryan O'Reilly, who in a similar situation, not as good, and won't provide you as much offense as Nazem Kadri, but he will come at a cheaper cost. And then Phil Deneau, who is obviously the cheapest. We know he could be a defensive stalwart. Can he provide the offense? That's the question right now for him. Does he need a new environment? Does he need a new system? The the Los Angeles Kings structure is really a defensive structure. It's not catered to the offense over there, and you see it with guys like Anze Kopitar who are defensive forwards and that blue line. So it is understandable, but I agree. A dream acquisition for me, certainly Nazem Kadri, certainly a guy who can drag the Devils over the line and put them from a pretender into a contender. Certainly a guy who's going to, try to get the most out of his teammates. And I would love to see him in New Jersey. Do I think it happens? I don't think it's realistic. I think it's going to cost a lot. But if they're going for a Ryan O'Reilly, who apparently is going to cost a first round pick, how much more is a Kadri going to cost? If you're going to delve out the first round pick, I say shoot for the stars and try to get Kadri if you can. Sean, what else we got here, buddy? Mr. White says, oh, nope, sorry. Collect Records 732 says Keefe is doing a great job given what he's got to work with, in my opinion. And I can't disagree at all. One of the interesting things I have said to, some of the people in the press box, Ryan, Danny, a couple others, um, we've seen Sheldon Keefe be really uh what's the word I'm looking for? Lively. We've seen him, maybe use some of that emotion behind the bench or use some of that emotion in a press conference. He's been really calm. And one of the things that I wonder is that if he just understands his circumstances right now, he understands what he has to work with. He understands that, there's nothing he can do about some of the injuries. Like it's certainly mounting on him, and he said like the guys are feeling the pressure in the room just because of who's not in the lineup and how much we're missing, and what is keeping us back is like we take 2 steps forward and we win a game, right, and then we take another 3 steps back because we lose another game. We don't play all that well, and in the midst of that we lose another body in Arseniy Gritsik, who is one of our better forwards. So it's a frustrating situation for them, but the thing that stands out for me is just how calm Sheldon Keefe has been through all of it, because I think he just understands the circumstances right now. And he did say, like, look, the guys in the room understand them too. They know there's nothing that they can do about the injuries, the unfortunate off ice incidents that happen, that you're just sitting there scratching your head, like, how did we get here? So I agree. Sheldon Keefe is not the problem here. I think he's doing as much as he can with what he can. I mean, I don't think he anticipated having an undersized fourth line with Cruikshank and Xavier Perrant, on the ice. And nothing against those guys. Crookshanks actually looked really good, but you want your fourth line to go out there and bang bodies and forecheck. And, not to say that those guys can't do that, but if you had some guys like Paul Cotter and stuff that are down on the fourth line, even Stefan Nason, if he was down on the fourth line, like, you're looking at a much stronger situation with your depth. And I think that that's really hurt the Devils this year. So uh, thank you for the question, Collect Records. What's next here? Mr. White says the roster construction is all over the place. Zero center depth, right wing heavy, little to no left wingers. And again, I don't disagree. The centers was a big question coming in. We knew that they needed a top 6 center. Coming into this season. Again, it's just one of those things that he asked at the press conference in May, what is depth? What is depth scoring? And I think he thought he addressed that with, the Arseniy Gritsuk and the Connor Browns, and went out and got a guy like Thomas Bordeleau, but those guys aren't, obviously going to play in the lineup right now. I mean, Bordeleau, you would think that he would be able to get in the lineup, and he hasn't been recalled yet. Maybe um, he's more of a left winger, so I guess maybe they're okay on the left side. But nonetheless, I mean, um, you're right. This and teams are typically built from the net out. You address them from goaltending to the defense; those have been established, and then you establish the center. and then the wings come last. Like the wingers are last priority for every team, and certainly the center depth being as weak as it is has hurt the Devils. So, thank you for your question, Mr. White. We got a few more here. Does anything substantial happen unless we get rid of Dougie's money? That is the $1 million question. One of the things that are probably holding them back from having made a move already, because that $9 million, like, look, you heard that they were already making trade calls in the summer for Dougie Hamilton. Just assessing like what is the interest, who wants this player, and not that we're moving him right now, but who would be interested. So they know coming into the season, who the interested parties are. But it is certainly one of the biggest factors in holding back what could potentially happen right now. And so, yes, I would say absolutely that's probably between him and Andre Palat, right? If Palat's money moves, that would help. Are they going to LTIR somebody for the remainder of the season? That there isn't any candidate for that, so they're not going to get the full cap hit. As you know, the CBA rules have changed. They only get like 3.8 million of a full contract. So like even somebody like Kovacevic, they wouldn't get his full cap hit in return. But certainly, those contracts are certainly hurting the Devils' ability to make any moves, and it has to be dollar in, dollar out. If the Devils are going to make moves, somebody has to be traded. And if somebody with a significant cap hit has to be traded. So yes, there are holdups happening because of these deals. Let's do one or two more here, Sean. What do we got? Unless we're all out. That might have been the last one. I think I saw one more, Sean. I'm just going to bring it up here quick. I believe Running with the Devils asked, how many times have you asked to speak with Tom Fitzgerald, and what has the response been? Peek behind the curtain here a little bit. I have put in a few requests, a handful of requests. Now, albeit, I will say we have a guest coming on next week who I don't know if we want to spoil it yet, Sean. So I'm not gonna say who it is, but we do have a how do I say, an executive within the organization coming on the show next week, who we will speak with. So it's not Tom Fitzgerald, but it is somebody in the organization that we will have access to next Friday. So we hope you're excited for that to happen. But it's been a couple of times, and we've just been told he's not been made available. So that's the crux of it. We've tried. Hasn't been presented to us in a way that we have been able to access him. And again, we'll continue to ask. And there have been citations that he's got some other things going on, which I'm sure he's busy trying to work the phones and get some sort of deal done for the team to improve the club. So certainly understandable. But and I know I'm not the only one who has put in these requests. I know there are others in the organization or working with the organization that have asked for Tom Fitzgerald. So I'm sure we'll get him at some point. Typically he does talk after he makes a trade. So if that happens sometime soon, he will speak. And he'll definitely speak by the trade deadline, at some point. So I think that's going to wrap it up here on Devils Rink Report podcast. So thank you so much for joining us today. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like this content. We will be live every Friday with at 3:30 p.m. We have more special guests coming. A little peek behind the curtain. That we have a big guest coming on next week. Obviously all of our guests are huge and we appreciate having them all. Big thanks to Greg Wyshynski, by the way, for coming on today. But we will see you next week on the Devils Rink Report podcast, 3:30 p.m. Friday, December 19th, with another guest. Couple games this weekend, so we hope you enjoy those, and keep it at New Jersey Hockey Now for your coverage of the New Jersey Devils. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.